Okay, Successful Indie Author, 5-Minute Focus, episode 43, Writing an Interesting Antagonist. Yesterday, which wasn't yesterday, actually, I think it was Friday, we talked about writing an interesting protagonist, but an antagonist. This is your counter hero. In some dark fiction, that's actually the hero of the story, even though they're dark and maybe not as good as we'd like them to be. Writing an interesting antagonist starts with giving them flaws, and some of the best ones aren't pure evil. They don't just do evil stuff to do evil. Now, there's some serial killer books out there and real serial killers out there who are pretty much evil, but they still do good things. And that's hard to get our heads wrapped around, how they can do something that's good and then also be what we would define as pure evil. Sufficient flaws to keep them real, and sufficient positive traits to keep them real. These are all stuff that go into almost any character. Write those characters. It's just his goal will be diametrically opposed or even offset, just offset, not even completely opposed to the protagonist's goal. So your antagonist, he's going to be a counter to your he, she, they, it is going to be a counter to your protagonist, and in a way that maybe their goals parallel for a while, but they're going to come to loggerheads. Physical description, same as the protagonist. Give just enough, and what matters to the story. Let the readers fill in their perfect idea of an antagonist, of an anti-hero. Every bad guy is a good guy in their mind. They do what they do for their reasons, and reasons that make sense to them. Conveying that in your story, those reasons that make sense, and especially to the readers, hey, here's his reasoning for doing this. Wow, that makes sense in an odd way. Those are the antagonists that people will follow, not to emulate, mind you, but just follow because they're interesting. This keeps the characters interesting. They don't just kick puppies. They don't just do bad things just to do bad things. Those are your characters. It's like, he just does all kinds of bad things. I don't want to read that. They want to read because they're interested and they're interesting, and how they come to that final conflict. And the conflict throughout, there's the perceived conflict. They're each going their own direction, and then all of a sudden they turn and, hey, you got your hero against your bad guy. That's why they counter the protagonist, antagonist, protagonist. These are two elements of the story that that most stories need. Many like a romance, you won't have an antagonist, but you have a counter to your main character. Your main character maybe could be the first person, your man, woman, your alien. That's the one that you're following, and then this other one kind of seems opposed to them. The enemies to friends love stories. Not COVID. Just cold outside. Just countering the protagonist. This is what your antagonist does. So they could be eminently likable in their own right, and if you wrote a story from their perspective, they could be the hero. Who knows? Who knows? And what about a double snapper? This is Ben Haas used this term back in the 1970s for wrapping up his career writing westerns. The double snapper is where you're building up this tension between your hero and the bad guy, and they're going. The hero, they have this big conflict. Hero beats the bad guy, and then you find out the bad guy's working for somebody else who's even a badder guy, bigger and badder, and then has to go to that next level of conflict to take on this new bad guy. That's the double snapper. You have to do it carefully. The character needs to be available, but that conflict resolution is not resolved, because this is just, he's an interim bad guy. So like in video games, you beat the mini boss before you go before the big boss. And sometimes you don't even realize he's the mini boss, because you're dragging yourself out of there with one hit point left, and all of a sudden, oh no, I got another fight coming. Look for those jars of healing. All right. Antagonist needs to be a counter to your protagonist. They can have all positive traits. just a counter to your protagonist. It brings the elements of your stories. It creates the conflict. It creates the psychological engagement with your readers so that they're following these two characters and wondering how they're going to resolve that conflict. Is it going to be a fight with a clear winner, clear loser? Are they going to go their separate ways? How is that going to work? And that's your story. Sufficient flaws to keep them real and physical description just enough to pique your interest of your readers. Keep them engaged. Let them fill in the bad guys, so you aren't considered all these bad-ist terms for creating a bad guy that's a stereotype. You don't need to do that. Just kind of describe them just enough that matters to the story. Shadowy figure. I love the shadowy figure. You don't have to describe them at all. They're a shadowy figure, and let the readers fill in however they want to, however they perceive the bad guy. The antagonist to your protagonist, the alpha to your omega. Every bad guy is a good guy in his own mind. In their story, they're the hero. Keep that in mind. Play it well with your writing, and sometimes do a double snapper and see how that works, and see how that keeps your readers engaged and brings a new crescendo to your plot. All right, everybody, you have a great time